Hello and welcome to the Exam Revision Junior Cycle Geography Predictions video 2025. In this video, we're going to take you through the Junior Cycle paper for this year and try and give you some helpful hints and tips in order for you to prepare better for the Junior Cycle exam. So one of the key things to remember for the Junior Cycle exam is that it's ultimately very hard to predict what's going to be coming up. This is due to the fact that the new structure of the exam, the Junior Cycle exam, is in from the last couple of years, but it hasn't really followed much of a pattern. So from that point of view, we've got to make sure that we're studying the entire course. We've got to make sure that we know all the different elements of it. That notwithstanding, there are certain things that we can say and we can make an educated guess on. So the first thing to note is that in the last number of years, there have been 9 questions on the paper. Now that could change, there could be 10 questions on the paper, but for now we know that there's 9 questions on the paper, and there have been in the last couple of years. Students must answer all 9 questions. There is no choice on this paper. So remembering that going into the exam again will also be very important, as you do not want to leave any questions unanswered, and therefore you're going to lose out on marks. So make sure that you answer all the questions. Also, the questions do not carry all equal marks. And from that point of view, you're not going to know what each part is actually worth. So again, you just have to answer each question to the best of your ability, as you will not know the marks, and basically they're not all going to be worth equal marks either. So make sure you try and fill in all the spaces that are there in front of you on the paper is the best way of going about this, and making sure that you're backing up your answers as best as possible. The questions followed a non-linear approach to topics, which means basically, in layman's terms, essentially that all of the questions are mixed. So there's no, say for example, physical question, there's no, say, population question as such. They mix in all the different topics in together, and as a result, you can have a mixture going on there. So again, it's very hard to predict then from that point of view what topic is going to come up, because there is very much a mix on all the questions. One of the things that we can't control, of course, is the timings of the exam. So this is a 2-hour exam. So you've got to be aware that you have 2 hours to get this completed. And of course, it goes without saying that you should stay for the exam for the entirety. You should not be leaving early, because you should be trying to answer every single question to the best of your ability. Now, there are 2 scenarios that there could be a 9-question exam or a 10-question exam. In the last couple of years, it has always been 9 questions. So looking at that, if your exam is 9 questions, you will have approximately 13 minutes per question. So you have 13 minutes to answer each particular question. So again, what I recommend is that you have your watch in front of you, you're looking at the clock, and you're ensuring that you spend in around this time on each question, that you're not spending too much time on it, and therefore you're spending too much time and kind of taken away from the other questions as a result. Adjustments may be necessary depending on the factors such as question complexity, your familiarity with the topic, and your own pacing. So basically that's just saying that, you know, certain questions might take you longer than others. If you make up time in a particular question, maybe then you can add on a bit of time to maybe a more difficult question that you may need. If by any chance that you have a 10-question exam, that means that you then have only 12 minutes per question. And the same thing applies, that if you have adjustments, you can do that in terms of difficulty of question, or a question that you have answered a bit more quickly. Also, just to bring your attention to the fact that ExamRevision.ie can really help you in terms of your revision for this particular subject as well. So we've got the complete revision package, and you can use 20-25 tips for 10% off a package of your choice. Of course, geography would be included in that, and includes hundreds of bite-sized video tutorials that makes learning easier for students. From our university-based research and first-hand experience of teaching in the classroom with students, at ExamRevision we've created and built the ultimate learning platform for secondary school students in Ireland. Watch and learn to boost your grades. We have a range of junior Leaving Cert subjects on our platform, and each subject covers the entire course in detail, providing support from the basics to the highest level achievable Our complete revision package will give you the entire junior or leaving cert exam subject broken down into bite-sized video tutorials, PowerPoint presentations, H1 notes, quizzes, exam paper questions, marking schemes, reflection log, and smart adaptive technology built into our platform to help guide students' learning. And you can see here that we've got 8 junior cycle subjects: Irish, English, Maths, History, Science, Geography, Business, Home Ec, and coming September 2025, French, Spanish, and Religion. Here's some of our student reviews. We have over 200 5 out of 5 star reviews from students, teachers, and from parents as well. So looking at the question structure of the exam, just to point out that the total marks for the paper itself are 360 marks. So that's what we're aiming to try and get the most marks out of possible. Obviously aiming to try and get full marks, of course. Not all the questions, as I said before, are going to have equal marks. So from that point of view, we're going to be a little bit in the unknown going in. But again, we answer every single question that is on the paper, and we try and fill in each of the spaces that are available for each question. The questions will start with shorter parts and with short answers, and also tick the box. So maybe one word answers in some cases, a couple of words, and then also tick the box options. So again, to be aware of that, and to also try and go on to ExamRevision.ie and try some of the past exam paper questions that are there, so you become a bit more familiar with these sorts of questions. But they then, after that, advance into longer, more detailed questions, looking for a more detailed answer, where you're going to have to formulate a longer answer and back up what you're saying and trying to put in examples in certain cases. So it's very important that we are also prepared for that. Some will also have a comprehension to read, and then from that you'll have to answer questions based on it. So it's very, very important from that point of view that you read the comprehension carefully. And I would always suggest to students that they actually bring in a highlighter to highlight some of the key words in the questions and also in the comprehension as well, so that we're not missing out on any of the key parts of the questions. So again, with the short questions, these questions are going to cover all parts of the course. So again, there's no real shortcuts in terms of the geography course here with the new junior cycle. You have got to learn and go through each of the different parts of the course. Again, going through past exam papers is going to give you a better idea of what way questions are going to be asked. So getting in and practicing them is going to be vital for you. Again, you want to be reading those questions extremely carefully, highlighting the key words that are within the question so that you're not misanswering the question, because so many students do not read the question carefully and as a result lose out on silly marks when they do not read the question properly. Again, as I've said already, the best way to prepare for these short questions is to practice previous exam questions. And luckily on ExamRevision.ie, there's a number of exam papers up there for you to practice. So getting on there and practicing those questions is going to be vital for your preparation for your junior cycle exam. Also in the exam, there's going to be a number of questions that are going to test your geographical skills. So you'll have a number of geographical skills based questions in the exam. And what they are going to test you on is especially your map and photograph skills. So especially looking at things like measuring distances, curved line distances, like measuring the distance of a road. You're going to be looking at your 4- and 6-figure grid referencing, so really practicing them and getting them correct is going to be super important. But then also looking at your map and photograph sketches, so sketching the map. And again, the border will be done for you within the exam, which is different to the old junior cert, whereas before you would have had to have drawn that out. That is done for you. So getting your sketches done to really high standards and making sure that everything is put on there extremely accurately is very, very important. Also your photograph skills in terms of being able to use your different directions within the photograph to be able to place different items and different things on it is going to be crucially important as well. So going back over that and practicing them is going to be super important. You will also be tested on things like weather charts. So to be revising over that is crucially important, looking at things like your rainfall, sunshine hours, things like that, and of course looking back over those measurement units for each of those different types of weather events is going to be crucially important. Also, you'll be reading different tables and graphs. You might even also be asked to sketch different graphs even as well. So it's very important from that point of view that you are also practicing them, and again looking back over your previous exam questions is going to help you with that. Very important before you go into the exam is to have colouring pencils with you for, again, your sketch maps or that you may be asked to do, that you will be asked to do. That is probably a guaranteed question that we could say that you will be asked to sketch a map. So having colouring pencils and pencils in is going to be super important, as well as having rulers, calculators will also be vital, because you don't want to be in the exam looking around you for these different items when you should be prepared and should have them in the exam hall with you. And again, I keep reiterating this point, but practice makes perfect with any of these things. So practice your previous questions, and even looking back over your mock exam that you would have done earlier this year will be important as well, to try and prepare yourself as best as possible for these skills-based questions. For your longer questions, again, you're going to want to ensure that you're reading the question carefully. You don't want to make mistakes, silly mistakes like that, and drop marks unnecessarily. So it's really important to read that question carefully. And again, you might have certain comprehension questions where it could ask you, or might give you information and you have to answer the question based on that. It may ask you to be a journalist or something like that in terms of writing a report on a particular incident that's happening, a geographical incident. Like in previous years, they've looked at cliff and coastal erosion, and you were a journalist and you've got to basically report on that. So those forms of questions can take place. When it comes to your physical questions, like looking at physical formations such as a waterfall, a system that works really, really well is the FEED system. So the FEED system that you can apply to your questions and make sure that you are basically hitting all the key points. So first thing you do is F, formation. You state what the formation is. So if you're asked for a feature of river erosion, you can state that the formation is a waterfall and it is formed through erosion. You can then get into explaining this. So you start to explain how it has been formed using your geographical terms. So in the case of waterfall, you're going to be talking about things like hydraulic action. You're going to be talking about things like abrasion, and help back up your answer. And they're really, really important that you use those geographical terms and you explain those geographical terms to help pick up marks throughout your answer. You also should have different examples in there as well. So if it's a waterfall, you want to throw in a couple in there, like maybe Torque Waterfall in County Kerry, or Powerscourt Waterfall in County Wicklow, being two Irish examples, as well as your international examples like Niagara Falls or Angel Falls that you want to use. So having those examples again will be important to help back up your answer. And then of course you're going to have a diagram at the very end, and space will be provided for you to draw this particular diagram. So you could be asked for, river features, coastal features. It could be a feature in terms of volcano. It could be your Fold Mountains formation. It could be to do with earthquakes. So looking over those diagrams, looking over those notes that you will have had from class will be very, very important in terms of getting yourself prepared for those longer questions. So in general, the key advice is going over those previous exam questions, getting the practice in, looking over the course, not leaving anything to chance is the key thing. Again, as I said before, the start of the video, is extremely hard to, I suppose, really predict any sort of questions that are going to come up, bar maybe you're going to get your sketch map. So from that point of view, be ready for your map skills and your geographical skills in general. But again, practice makes perfect. And looking back over those, the entire course is going to stand you in good stead. So best of luck with your exam in 2025, and I hope that this will help your studies over the next couple of weeks as you prepare for the junior cycle exam.